I don't make this kind of content because I want to tell people what to do. I make this kind of content because I know what it's like to feel trapped by your weight. I know what it's like to live with this burden that you didn't ask for, and you also can't seem to fix. I also know what it's like to find a way out. And maybe it's controversial, and maybe it's extreme, and maybe people really don't like it, but something's happening here, and I think it should be taken seriously. But let me start by telling you my story. So this is me 10 years ago. I was 145 pounds. I had gone down from 200 pounds over a couple of years, and I did it in completely unhealthy ways. I also had no idea how thin I was. When I looked in the mirror, I thought I was still 200 pounds. It didn't matter how small my pant size got, I always saw the same body when I looked at myself in the mirror. This is me 5 years later. I had gained back the 60 pounds. I was 200 pounds at that point, and I was preaching that I would never diet ever again because dieting had failed me. And I knew that if I was going to be really happy, I needed to throw the scale away, get my mind right, and get more in touch with who I was and the value that my body has regardless of weight. 2 years later, I had gained about 15 pounds, and I could not walk up a high street without having to sit down and catch my breath because I was worried I might pass out. Now, I had made peace with food, and I knew how beautiful I was, and I knew how much value I had, but I was scared. Okay, I could tell I wasn't healthy, I was anxious all the time, and obviously my body was weak. Something had to change. So I went against all of the things I had been preaching, and I started a low-carb diet program. And I'm gonna be real, I thought I was a changed person. I remember sitting down and saying, I will never go back to being that heavy again because now I know how it works. All I have to do is stay away from pasta and pizza and ice cream, and I'll be fine. I'll stay lean and be healthy. I'll start running. Everything will get itself in order. But like most people who gain some success after dieting, it didn't take. No sugar became, a little bit of chocolate here and just a little bit of ice cream there. And I'm not gonna have pasta became, potato chips aren't pasta. And rice isn't pasta. And maybe pasta is okay if it's a side dish. And I'm just working it into this, but it's got a lot of vegetables. And I gained most of the weight back over the next 3 years. And I want to stress that I really was trying to do everything right. Like follow the dietary guidelines, make sure I'm not restricting too much, work out 5 times a week. I probably could have strength trained more, so fine, you want to come at me about that? That's okay. But when it came to food, everything in moderation, lots of fruits and vegetables, take out the junk. I should have been fine. But we all know this story. If you relate to this, you know how this feels. You just try to do the right thing and you can't move the needle. And then, October 2025, on a very sunny day in Dallas, I got curious about the carnivore diet. I started listening to the success stories, the way it's changed people's health, not even just the weight loss, the things that it's done for people's minds, for people's bodies, for people's illnesses. You can't listen to that stuff and not wonder what can it do for me. But I knew that carnivore, being the ultimate low-carb diet, was also the most restrictive diet I could put myself on. And I was gonna have to play this smart, or, I don't know, maybe I'd end up in some weird cult. So I decided instead of just doing the diet, I was gonna study the diet. Instead of just accepting everything except for meat is bad, I was gonna find out why everything except for meat was bad. And I started to learn about blood sugar, and I started to learn about insulin. And I started to see that when it came to weight loss, and I'm talking specifically about weight loss here, ice cream wasn't bad. It just wasn't going to help my body release weight. if I wanted the mechanisms in my body to unlock the fat storage, every time I ate ice cream, I was gonna close the door again. It wasn't personal. It wasn't about me being a good person or a bad person. If I ate potato chips, it wasn't you've done something bad. It was, okay, you've locked up your fat storage. If you wanna unlock the fat storage, move away from the carbohydrates. Again, it's not personal, it's just mechanics. You know, some cars run on oil, some cars run on electric. It's not personal, it's just mechanics. And you know, I watched myself start losing weight, and I watched my anxiety go away, and I started to get really happy. And I started to see that I was having the best year of my adult life. And when you experience something like that, you get a little obnoxious about it. You get inspired. You want to tell people, you want to help them. Because you see how much diets fail people. And you see how the classic calories in and calories out, it's not working. I look around me and I get sad because I see so many people trapped in obesity. And I just want to yell out, why don't we try a different set of rules? Why don't we look at the mechanics differently? And you know, maybe I'll learn one day that I'm wrong. But all I know is that once I wrapped my brain around the low carb mechanics, things started to change. My mind cleared up. I stopped being afraid of my scale. I started to move and smile and shine. I started to engage in my relationships in a way that I had never engaged before. I say all this because if you're trying to lose weight, it is so weird for me to take a hard stance when it comes to dieting, but man, give low carb a chance. Just dabble in learning the mechanics. Or listen to some success stories. You know, when you're done with me, watch a video on insulin, watch a video on cortisol or visceral fat, or pick up one of the podcasts from one of the low carb creators and listen to a success story. Yeah, there's restriction. Everything has restriction. Marriage is restrictive. Driving inside the lines is restrictive. Not doing hard drugs is restrictive, but we do them because they improve the quality of our life. You don't have to be carnivore, and you don't have to post your journey on the internet. You don't even have to tell your parents or your kids or your aunts or your uncles or your best friends. You don't have to tell anybody you're trying this thing out. But we live at a time where knowledge is in abundance. And humans are starting to run the experiments on themselves because science is just, the general thinking is not working. And a little bit of out of the box thinking can go a really long way. And I'm living proof of that. And I can't just sit here anymore and act like I'm not. Act like I'm neutral about this. Because when you see great change, when you experience great change, you want that change for other people. Thank you for your time watching this video. I really appreciate it. And no matter where you go from here, I wish you the best of luck. And if you're feeling trapped, there is a way out. There will never be a day where you have to fully give up. Okay, take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys in another video.